There's big news in the fight to end government restrictions on suppressors. The Trump administration just changed its position, saying suppressors are protected by the Second Amendment. But there's a catch. They still say the government can regulate them. A federal court agreed with this logic, and now the case is heading to the Supreme Court. Let's break down what's happening and why it matters. Before we dive in, if you want to support this channel, just hit subscribe. Also, check that YouTube hasn't automatically unsubscribed you. It happens more than you'd think. I also want to thank First Form for supporting this channel. They're a freedom-loving, pro-America company that supports Second Amendment rights. The owners, like Andy Frisella, share the same values we talk about here. Plus, they make excellent supplements. If you're trying to get healthier this year, maybe you made a New Year's resolution, check them out using the link below. When you order supplements through that link, you'll get a free 5-pack of protein sticks. We're talking about a suppressor case that a federal appeals court just ruled on. The stakes just got much higher because of what the court decided. The case is called United States versus Peterson, and it challenges whether the National Firearms Act, NFA, violates the Constitution when it comes to suppressors. Mr. Peterson was convicted of breaking the NFA. He argued that the NFA's suppressor restrictions violate the Second Amendment. When the Fifth Circuit Court first looked at this case, a 3-judge panel said suppressors aren't protected by the Second Amendment at all. No protection means no constitutional violation. But recently, the Fifth Circuit issued a new decision. This time, the same 3 judges admitted that suppressors might be protected arms. They agreed suppressors get Second Amendment protection. But here's the shocking part. They still said the NFA restrictions don't violate the Constitution. Why? Because they think the NFA works like a shall-issue permit. The judges pointed to something Justice Kavanaugh wrote in the Bruin case about shall-issue concealed carry permits. They're saying the NFA works the same way, objective and fair. This is deeply concerning. It has huge implications for other Second Amendment laws and issues going forward. After this new ruling, Mr. Peterson asked the full Fifth Circuit to review the case. That request was denied. The Trump Justice Department submitted a response arguing the full court should reject the case and let the lower ruling stand, including that whole shall-issue permit analysis. Because of that, the Fifth Circuit denied review. This isn't good news. We're seeing a disturbing pattern from the Trump Justice Department. They keep defending the NFA in court. The Fifth Circuit's denial put Mr. Peterson in serious danger. He was out on bond after his conviction. With the Fifth Circuit denying his case, he was facing the possibility of reporting back to court and going to prison. Mr. Peterson asked the Fifth Circuit to delay their decision because he planned to take the case to the Supreme Court. But the Fifth Circuit said no. They decided to issue their mandate anyway. They didn't seem to care that this would have serious consequences for Mr. Peterson, even though he was going to appeal to the Supreme Court. This put Mr. Peterson in an incredibly difficult position. He might have to report to prison even though he had an active petition going to the Supreme Court. He explained this to the Fifth Circuit as a reason to delay their decision. But apparently, the Fifth Circuit didn't care that Supreme Court review was coming or that Mr. Peterson would have to go to prison. Fortunately, Mr. Peterson got help from an unexpected place. The District Court, the lowest court in the chain, issued an order allowing him to stay out on bond while the Supreme Court considers his case. Let me back up and explain how we got here. In 2022, both federal and state law enforcement officers raided Mr. Peterson's home in Louisiana. He had a home-based federal firearms license, FFL. 50 law enforcement officers, including ATF agents, executed a search warrant and raided his property. The search warrant was based on potential record-keeping errors and issues with Form 4473s, the forms you fill out when buying a gun. They also claimed some firearms sold at that location were later found at crime scenes. But here's what's important. Out of this entire incident, it's the possession of a single solvent trap, not registered under the NFA as a suppressor, that led to his conviction. Mr. Peterson responded to this charge by filing a motion in the lower court to dismiss it based on the Second Amendment. The lower court denied his motion to dismiss. That forced Mr. Peterson to appeal to the Fifth Circuit. On the first review, the Fifth Circuit sided with the Biden administration's ATF and Justice Department. The court said a suppressor isn't a necessary part of a firearm. It's not required to make the gun useful or functional, they argued. Mr. Peterson and his lawyers decided to ask the Fifth Circuit to rehear the case. This was still during the Biden administration, but as I mentioned, that petition was later withdrawn. The original ruling by the three-judge panel was also withdrawn because the Trump Justice Department took over. Then something changed. The Trump Justice Department shifted its position on suppressors. They admitted that suppressors are protected arms under the Second Amendment. This was a critical shift because the Biden ATF had argued that suppressors aren't protected at all. This forced the Fifth Circuit's three-judge panel to take a fresh look at the case. But even after this dramatic shift from the Trump Justice Department, the panel still upheld the NFA restrictions. In their recent ruling, the Fifth Circuit still said the NFA can regulate suppressors because the process works like a shall-issue permit, which they believe is allowed under the Bruin Supreme Court decision. In Bruin, Justice Kavanaugh wrote that concealed carry permits may be generally acceptable if they use objective criteria like background checks, fingerprinting, and reasonable fees. But here's the problem. The Fifth Circuit twisted that reasoning about concealed carry permits and used it to justify the NFA's registration and taxation scheme. That's why this ruling is so dangerous. Essentially, the Fifth Circuit's decision now says that any permit system restricting Second Amendment rights may be allowed as long as it operates objectively. Think about the implications of that. This decision is now heading to the Supreme Court for review. Originally, Mr. Peterson and his lawyers asked for the full Fifth Circuit to review the case, but that was quickly denied. Then the Fifth Circuit decided to issue their mandate, allowing the ruling against Mr. Peterson to take effect. They did this even though Mr. Peterson asked them to delay because he told them directly he was going to ask the Supreme Court to review the case. In response, Mr. Peterson went to the district court and asked them to extend his bond and keep him out of prison while the Supreme Court considers his petition. Thankfully, the district court granted that request. The order from the lower court said, "It is hereby ordered that George Peterson shall remain on bond under the same conditions and within the same stipulations as originally set by the court pending resolution of his petition for a writ of certiorari to the United States Supreme Court." The court also said that if needed, they'll set a new date for him to turn himself in after the Supreme Court proceedings. This is good news for Mr. Peterson. He and his lawyers now have 90 days, until March, to file their petition asking the Supreme Court to review the case. This is a critical case, and not just because of the NFA and suppressor question, which would impact everyone nationwide. It's also high stakes for Mr. Peterson personally. If the Supreme Court doesn't act, Mr. Peterson could face serious prison time because of how the NFA currently operates. We'll now see how this plays out at the Supreme Court level and whether they decide to take the case. Hopefully, for Mr. Peterson's sake, and for everyone's sake, they do take it, and we get a positive ruling that protects not just him, but all Americans. Unfortunately, that's where this case currently stands. As we get more information and as things develop, I'll keep you updated. If you found this video helpful and you want to support the channel, one of the best ways is to like, comment, and subscribe. You can also check out the other videos on screen that YouTube thinks you'll find helpful. But as always, thank you so much for your support. And never forget, this nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.